doing the portraits over at Curtain Club in '98. And that's when I dropped off the first painting for Hagfish. And it's a really weird feeling to see the room empty now, just with everything ripped out. Not just the paintings, but the floor plan. I mean, it all being gone except for recognizing the door and the stickers. But you know, it was also hard for me to paint for Curtain Club because Doug would want one, and Nokia would want one, and Sprint Center would want one, and they'd all want them on the same night, and I'd be trying to drop them off, and it was really just tough to get everything done. But I didn't have a choice. I mean, it had to be dry. It had to be hanging up before the show, and it was a lot of work, but all that practice at that point really helped me perfect my craft, my style. I never got to see any of the shows I painted because I would be literally painting and exhausted and then wanting to go home. Yeah, it was sad to see the club close, and then of course that meant all the paintings being scattered instead of being sort of a museum of local music, history of local bands, and even a few touring bands. But when it suddenly, you know, I heard it was closing, I was shocked. But thankfully one of the guys stepped in, and he took it upon himself. He'd been working there for years to contact the bands, and once I got word of it, I started contacting bands to come get their paintings. I still have 5 paintings from Curtain Club at my house that I was supposed to deliver to paint to bands that wanted them, but then COVID hit. I think I've got Lift Experience, Bob Goblin, Terror Couple, and I think one other. Yeah, it's just a shame. Because you work out so hard, you think it's going to be there forever. It's going to be sort of something that, you know, a monument in Deep Ellum, not just because of my art, but because of the club and the art and the ambiance, the whole room and the feel. And I was thinking he would either sell the club to somebody and they would keep it going, but instead, to see it just gutted. And I'm glad the paintings went to good homes and didn't just get thrown in a dumpster or something like that. But I would keep doing it because the bands really appreciated it, and they always wanted a portrait, a Curtain Club portrait. Sometimes they would say a Cabe portrait, but more often than not, they wanted a Curtain Club plaque. I don't know why they called them a plaque, but that was the big goal, was to get on the wall. And so I knew if I stopped doing it, it would be disappointing a lot of young, upcoming bands. It was locally there for a while. It was like if you were on the wall at Curtain Club, you knew that you had made it on some sort of like local level. And I was just glad to see that one guy come in and make sure that the bands at least knew the paintings were available to be picked up. But looking at it now, just seems a lot smaller. It seemed like a big room back then, but looking at it now, I mean, I can see where the stage was, I can see where the sound booth was, I can see where the bar was. It looks so tiny. I just don't remember it being this small. It's just weird to see it like this with everything gone and it not seem as big. I mean, everything's taken away and it's a smaller room, which doesn't make sense. Here you can see the drill holes where they hung my paintings. They would literally just take a really long screw, like a deck screw, and go right into the masonry, which sometimes was drilled right through the painting. So yeah, when they pulled them off the walls, they literally pulled them off the walls. The door is worth a lot of memories, and if somebody were to hang that up in their club, it would definitely be like owning the door to our CBGBs or something, because it has every sticker on there. I mean, I can look on there and see stickers. I don't know who the fuck they are, but underneath that, there's Brittle Juice, and there's Centromatic, and there's Adventures of Jet, and there's just going on and on and on and on. You just layers of generations of bands just putting their stickers over one another. It's like digging down into the soil and doing like a soil sample, doing rings of a tree. It at age, you could see the early bands and underneath, just barely through the other stickers. So it had a really cool, and just the fact that it had that many stickers on it, and it was a heavy door. It was the door you got thrown out of. It was the door you came in. It was the door to the club. So that day when it closed and I was up there and they were let me pick out a few paintings Doug didn't want. He told me I could pick some paintings, so I picked paintings that I knew that the bands were unaware because they were out of town. They were broken up, but I knew that they cared and worked very hard on their careers back then. Getting the paintings back to them wasn't that hard once they found I had it. The place had a capacity of 400, but you could easily push 500 in here, and they did. Of course, with the balcony and having the liquid lounge up front came in handy because you could spill over, but you knew you were at a special show when you could look up and see just faces hanging over the balcony all the way around, and you knew that there were 6 people behind them that couldn't even see over the railing, and the floor was packed to where you could walk on people to the bar, literally. That's pretty much how that Tripping Daisy show was, and that's why I was on the stack, sitting on top of a stack, because I wanted to see the show, and I didn't want to get crushed to death. But it was such a beautiful show. I mean, with the light show, and that was just one example of how beautiful that room could be when it was full.
It was a very positive experience.
It wasn't just positive on the level of being able to do all that and be involved in the club, but just all the practice and experience you get from it, and being involved in actually being part of the club. Even when I wasn't working there, I just knowing that you're part of that club's ambiance or namesake, it definitely is positive for my career. I mean, because if that wasn't happening, if that didn't happen, then Nokia doesn't call and say, hey, we need a portrait painter. And then Palladium Ballroom doesn't happen. And then Kansas City, and then Trees, and even the Profit Bar, the 4 I did for them. And then people sing the portraits. Definitely, it meant a lot to me. I mean, for them to ask me to do that, I mean, as time goes on and your career advances, you start to feel unappreciated, but you have to sit there and say to yourself, this isn't about you. This is about continuing something that's really important. Looking back on it, to say, would I do it all over again? Yeah. Do I wish it kept going? Yeah. It may sound like sometimes I didn't enjoy doing it, but I really did. I mean, there was definitely really a solid period in there that it made me feel almost like I was some sort of weird celebrity. People don't see painters and authors' faces, they only see actors and band members.